Okay, where will future national championship games be played and where should they be played? That's the more important part of this conversation. Dean Legge from Dog Post going to take you through this again. And we've seen a lot of this in the national championship game. As soon as the college football playoff started, we had a moving target for national championship games. I'm going to go through that real quick for you and tell you why this matters and why it should matter even more. So the first game was at A&T Stadium in Arlington, so that's Dallas area, and then they went to Glendale, which is Phoenix, Tampa, which is probably the worst one on this list in terms of facility and just really in terms of facility, it's the worst one on this list, I would say. Yeah, I reserve the right to change my mind because I see another one coming up. But and then they went to Atlanta for Mercedes-Benz, Georgia, Bama, Santa Clara, which is San Francisco for Levi's Stadium, Mercedes-Benz Superdome, which is now Caesar Superdome. That is the worst facility, but it is New Orleans, so that definitely I would keep that around. And then a year later at Hard Rock in Miami, that is a great situation down there. You're not going to hear me complain about Hard Rock. That was awesome. Period. Indianapolis was hosting Georgia, Alabama. It was a total nightmare. Everything about that stadium. Well, the stadium was not great, but the location, the weather, horrible. And then Los Angeles this past year was SoFi. Next year in Houston at NRG Stadium, Mercedes-Benz Stadium back in Atlanta in 20 for the 25 uh, 25 playoffs, 24 season, and then for the 25 season back down to Hard Rock. So you're going to see Atlanta and Miami host it twice. Um, Look, it's my opinion that some cities should always be hosting. Is if it's ABC and Glen Ross Glengarry or whatever the name was with Alec Baldwin, it should always be who should always be hosting. Always be hosting. Here are the ones I would stick with at all times. It would be Atlanta, Miami, New Orleans, and then somewhere in Southern California. It can be the Rose Bowl. It can be, SoFi. I thought SoFi was fine. I didn't think it was. The underneath of it was very nice. It was laid out well. I thought the whole week in Los Angeles was great. I thought the weather was not ideal, but it wasn't Indianapolis. So anything was better than that train wreck, and there was so much more to do in Los Angeles than Indianapolis as well. Um, but I would stick, you know, I would, and I know the problem here is that the Big Ten really gets its feelings hurt when games are not played in the Big Ten, area. The challenge with the Big Ten though is there's really only a couple of places that you can play that are in Big Ten country. That would be one is Indianapolis, which I've already discussed. I'm sure some of y'all had a great time in Indianapolis. I'm not sure what you were doing. I was there longer than you. That place was not ideal for this particular thing. If it were in the spring, I think it'd be a different ball game. There weren't a lot of places to. There were like several small places to eat, the steakhouses, plural, and then you had. I mean, the weather was so bad. You just didn't want to get out in it. And the weather was bad in LA. The weather was bad in Atlanta at the time Georgia plays those games. It wasn't anything close to Indianapolis. So that's the caveat there. Detroit is another place that you could host it, but and then Minnesota as well. I don't know why you would ever host it at those places. It's not a place. The northern United States is not a place that you should be going the first week of January. Period. Y'all should be leaving there yourselves if you're watching this. Hey, pick up Double Dogs today. We've still got confetti. Did not realize I had. I know a lot of y'all are watching this for the first time. If you pick up Double Dogs or look at the 2022 season, you get confetti included. You do not have to email me. Everyone to this point can get it. Don't wait to order though. Dogstruction was this is our experience in Indianapolis. The game was cool. Some of the setup of Indianapolis, the fact that I could walk from my hotel room to the game and not go outside, that was cool. The fact that it took me 25 minutes to do that, that was not great. So um, I think that, for me, I would stick with in a 10-year period of time, I would always be in Atlanta, I would always be in Miami, I would always be in New Orleans, I would always be in Southern California. I think to some degree they should be in Dallas as well, or Texas, whether it be Houston or Dallas. This game, here's places this game should never be played. All right, and I've got an exception here. This game should almost always, not always, almost always be in a dome. Why? Well, Indianapolis is a great example of the reason why. I mean, or even Atlanta in 2000, the Bama Georgia national championship game there. The game should be to where weather does not affect it or dictate who wins the national championship game. I mean, that's just not, you know, that's not the way it should be. We saw with the Super Bowl that the turf should not be dictating how these games are played. So in Atlanta, in Phoenix, at SoFi, there are places where you've got a dome, you don't have to worry about weather. There are locations, SoFi would be one of them, but there are locations like the Rose Bowl, the Orange Bowl, that you're not really worried about it. Places that should really never have it, just this is my prejudice. Charlotte, Nashville. Until these places get domes, forget it. Charlotte, Nashville, Memphis, no. I mean, obviously, Memphis is never going to host it because they don't have the facility, but it's the same basic problem as the other places, which is it can get really cold in North Carolina. It can rain on you and be cold in North Carolina in early January. And I think what you want when you're determining a champion of college football is not for the weather to be the reason why. I'm trying to remember the last time a national championship game had really, nasty weather. And it's been a while because mainly these games are inside. Raymond James is outside, but it's in Tampa. Santa Clara is outside. It's in Northern California, so it can get cold up there too now. Miami, great weather typically. Indianapolis, Southern California, not a problem. I mean, NRG is a dome, so Houston's not a big deal. Atlanta, obviously, a dome as well. Can be open. I would never have it open, but you don't want it to be that some strange event, some strange weather condition is the reason why you have a problem. Uh, or you're going to watch Ohio State struggle with Northwestern or Georgia struggle with, Kentucky or whatever. So you want the best teams to play in the best positions, the best, environments and so forth. The other part about this is just my prejudice too now. The cities can't suck. All right? Um, just speaking for myself, having been there. Nobody wants to go to Minneapolis or St. Paul. They just don't. We don't want. I don't want to. Why? For what? I've been there. I've been there for a wedding in the summer. It's just not good. Okay. It's nice in the summer. I have zero interest in going there in January. Indianapolis, I would scratch that off my list from here on out. Just we don't need to go there. There's no reason to have it there. There's no reason to have this game in New York City, or at the Meadowlands, whatever you want to call it. Those are bad decisions. Okay, Boston, I don't think there's a dome up there. No. Um, Los Angeles was a great, experience for us. I can only speak for the Dog Post crew. We had one meal that was bad or subpar, and that was in the restaurant, in the hotel. Everything about Los Angeles was first class. Atlanta, I don't think I need to sell Atlanta to people. I think most people watching this understand Atlanta. Miami was great, and I do not like Florida. Miami was great. It was, you know, they can only the bowl committees can only control certain things so much. We had a strange trip to the stadium, but everything in the stadium was easy. Hard Rock was, I thought, really nice. Everything around the stadium was easy and awesome. These are things that matter. No, listen, with New Orleans, you know what you're getting. For me, you know what you're getting into. Like it's New Orleans. Like don't think it's gonna be, nice. Just know that it's New Orleans and you've got a lot of really great food, tons of great entertainment. The weather participates for the most part in Louisiana, for the most part in the winter, but you're indoors for the game, so it's kind of irrelevant. Um, you just can't have these situations where, you know, it's just they're just train wrecks. And Indianapolis was a disaster. Okay, it was just it was so cold you could not go outside. I'm so eager to read everybody's defense of Indianapolis. Anybody that wants to defend freezing cold weather, icy conditions everywhere, and 9-degree weather, have at it. I would also not play this game. I'm trying to think of other places. To me, San Francisco is a little too far gone. Los Angeles, okay, but San Francisco, I like San Francisco. I like Northern California. Too far, too far, too far from everybody. Just way too far gone. And I think Dallas, Dallas can get a little dicey in the winter sometimes, but I think Dallas, the area would be great, generally speaking. But I would keep it south of Tennessee. Like if you're south of Chattanooga, you're doing okay. If you're Once you get above Chattanooga, you start kicking around, playing this game. I'm trying to think of where there are other domes. Um, you want to really be careful because it's not just the facility; it's everything around it too. Lucas Oil was okay. I mean, there were parts of it I was like, but Lucas Oil Stadium was okay. It was everything else was just awful. I mean, it just moving around was hard to do. It was not a great town. It was boring, I thought. So, I don't know, but Chicago's a great town. It does not have a dome stadium out. Minneapolis, I'm sure it's nice. It has a dome stadium. Never in January. Never. Michigan, Detroit, it's too cold. It's just too cold. Nowhere in Ohio has a dome. Cleveland and Cincinnati. And the other thing is too, like with Lucas Oil, these are not real big stadiums. The Rose Bowl is huge, and they can host things, but that's for the Rose Bowl. SoFi. I was about to say Atlanta Fulton County Stadium. The Dome in Atlanta. These are not giant facilities, and I just, to me, I would, if I were, and they may be doing this without saying it out loud, but if I were them, I'd make sure Miami has one or two a decade, Atlanta has one or two a decade, Dallas Metroplex certainly, definitely the Superdome in Louisiana, and I would make sure somewhere, whether it be the Rose Bowl or SoFi, it would probably be SoFi at this stage. I'd make sure that all those destinations have it, and then where else can you play? I mean, Levi's for me a little high. Almost anywhere in Florida you could play this game. Jacksonville would not be my first choice to play this game, but you could have it there. You could play it in Orlando. Again, not a big Orlando person. Tampa, no. But you could play it at those places and not worry about weather, really. I mean, it's Florida. So you could have some rain, and sometimes it's cold in January in Florida, but it's never like Indianapolis cold. And then like Nashville, unless there's a dome, no. And I think a lot of people would like to do Nashville, but I'm telling you, man, you don't want any part of this. It can snow on you up there. You really want to play a national championship game in snow? No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do Charlotte. There's just it's like we got to have reason here. But I think Atlanta being the capital of college football is step one. Miami for sure. Louisiana Superdome for sure. Southern California, probably SoFi. I would personally prefer the Rose Bowl, but that's me. And then, Phoenix, Dallas, they should not be ignored either. But though that group is so good, you don't need to go to Indianapolis or Minnesota or Michigan to play these games. Hey, and the Big Ten people that are watching this, I guess to the end, get over yourselves. It's okay. We choose where we live just like y'all do. And you're choosing to live in that weather. That's your problem. I mean, I'm not saying Indiana's dull and boring or anything like that. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying the weather is horrible, horrible, and it's a complete no for me. Zero, not happening.